Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this solicitation webinar. Today, we are focusing on a new Bureau of Justice Assistance funding opportunity, which is the 2024 Improving Adult and Youth Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry, or CSCR program. My name is Felicia Lopez-Wright, and I'm a project manager within the Behavioral Health Division at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. I will be facilitating today's webinar, which is hosted by the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA. We are also joined by Margaret or Meg Chapman, who is the primary presenter of today's webinar content, and my colleague Alexis Lacey, Deputy Program Director within the Behavioral Health Division at the CSG Justice Center. Meg Chapman is a policy advisor supporting the Corrections, Reentry, and Justice Reform Policy Office of BJA. She has spent the past 25 years working in a variety of social science research, policy development and analysis, and program evaluation roles. Her portfolio of work is focused on the intersection of behavioral health and corrections and includes informing policy related to the identification of individuals with behavioral health disorders at the point of detainment, the assessment and provision of evidence-based treatment to individuals while in custody, and continuation of care upon release. She has an MA in Criminal Justice from the State University of New York at Albany. To give you a sense of today's webinar, first, we will do a quick overview of the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP, BJA, and the Second Chance Act, followed by a review of the available 2024 Improving Adult and Youth Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry Program funding opportunity, and a quick section on additional information and resources. We'll also have some time for questions and answers. If you have questions during the presentation, please send them in via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We are recording the webinar, and we will post it on the BJA website and the CSG Justice Center websites within 1 to 2 weeks. If you encounter any technical difficulties during this webinar, please reach out to Zoom for technical support. So next, I will turn it over to Meg to tell us more about OJP, BJA, and the Second Chance Act.
Thank you, Felicia. Hi, everyone. Keep moving to the next slide. So as mentioned, I'm going to start by orienting you a bit to the Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA. BJA is located within the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP. OJP provides a wide range of services to the criminal justice community in the form of grants, training, technical assistance, and research. Although our focus today is on a BJA solicitation, there are other OJP offices and Department of Justice agencies shown on this slide that offer additional grants and programs to support our shared public safety mission. Next slide. BJA's mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Next slide. BJA does this through funding, which is what we're talking about today, as well as through training and educational opportunities, the development and dissemination of tools and products to support the delivery of what works in the field, and by supporting partnership and collaboration through opportunities to bring the field together through convenings and peer-to-peer networking. Next slide, please. The Improving Adult and Youth Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry, or CSCR program, presented in this webinar is funded by the Second Chance Act. The Second Chance Act was first signed into law in 2008. In 2018, the Second Chance Reauthorization Act built on and strengthened the original landmark legislation that was passed. The SCA legislation provides funding to reduce recidivism and improve outcomes for youth and adults leaving detention and incarceration. Funding has supported over $500 million in reentry investments across the country. And these grants are administered by BJA and the Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention, or OJJDP. Next slide. The Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry Solicitation is one of 8 solicitations that will be released as part of the suite of Second Chance Act grant programs supported by BJA. While we'll be focusing on only one of these grant programs today, we encourage you to visit BJA's website over the coming months under funding opportunities to learn more about the other programs. So the structure of the SCA program is to provide funding to agencies and organizations to support the implementation, piloting, and/or expansion or enhancement of reentry programs through competitive grant programs. And then we complement our Second Chance Act awards with training and technical assistance that is available through a provider who, in this case, has expertise in both crisis and reentry programming, and as well as in federal grant administration. Next slide. Grantee teams who receive CSCR program awards will be supported throughout the active grant cycle by representatives from BJA's policy and program offices, as well as by a coach from the Council of State Governments Justice Center, or CSG Justice Center, who serves as the training and technical assistance provider for this grant program. I'm going to turn it over briefly to Alexis Lacey from the Council of State Governments to share a bit more about her organization and other Second Chance Act supports.
Thank you, Meg. This webinar is hosted by the National Reentry Resource Center, also called the NRRC, which is operated by the Council of State Governments Justice Center. The NRRC is a collaborative project of BJA and OJJDP to advance the knowledge base of the reentry field. That means supporting agencies and organizations like yours, criminal justice agencies that are in a position to prepare people for or supervise people in reentry, and community-based organizations who provide services and support to people in reentry, as well as individuals seeking information about where and how to find such support. The NRRC also serves as a convener and coordinator of SCA grantees. The CSG Justice Center is one of the Second Chance Act training and technical assistance providers and supports SCA grantees focused on improving outcomes for youth and adults with behavioral health and crisis stabilization needs after contact with the juvenile or criminal justice system. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Meg.
Thank you. And as you can see, we're going to shift into a polling question so that we can get a better sense, or I can get a better sense of your experience with federal grants. So has your organization been awarded federal grants in the past? And a polling form will come up so you can answer the question as to whether it would be yes, my organization has extensive experience with federal grants. Yes, though my organization does not currently have any federal grants. My organization has limited experience with federal grants, or my organization is new to federal grants and looking to learn more. So we're going to pause for a few minutes and let you answer that question. I'll give it another couple of seconds. Hoping everyone was able to answer that question and we can look at the responses. Okay, so we have a good amount of experience with federal grants. About half of you have one now or have had one in the past, and the other half is limited or no experience with federal grants. So hopefully through this webinar and reviewing the solicitation, you'll have a better feel for how to get your application submitted. Thank you. So now I'm going to walk through the solicitation a bit. So starting with some basics. Through this solicitation, BJ anticipates making up to 10 awards for a maximum dollar amount of $835,000. The award will be for 3 years or 36 months, starting October 1st, 2024. Next slide. And there are 2 funding categories. The first category is for applicants from state and local government agencies, and the second is for applicants for nonprofit organizations and tribal governments. And so depending on your agency, you would apply to one category or the other. Next slide. Through this grant program, BJA seeks to support state, local, and tribal governments, as well as community-based nonprofit organizations, to support cross-system collaboration between criminal and/or juvenile justice agencies, mental health and substance use agencies, and community-based organizations that provide reentry services, and community-based behavioral health providers to improve clinical stabilization and treatment services pretrial, during confinement, and support the continuity of care and recovery during the transition back to the community through clinical and other evidence-based activities or services for individuals with serious mental illness, substance use disorders, and co-occurring disorders. The goal of these efforts is to minimize potential for experiencing crisis and improve recovery outcomes for for adults or juveniles with serious mental illness, substance use disorders, and co-occurring disorders who are currently involved with the criminal or juvenile justice system or reentering the community from those systems. Next slide, please. Programs funded under the solicitation should be ensuring that individuals are screened, assessed, and identified for program participation and clinical services during pretrial detention or as early as possible upon incarceration and prior to release. Following release from incarceration or pretrial detention, participants should receive discharge planning and wraparound services based on the results of their screening and assessment that support continuity of care and long-term recovery in the community. BJA encourages applicants to request funding to support a coordinated and comprehensive approach to reduce risk of crisis and improve reentry and recovery outcomes, which should include screening, assessment, and identification for program participation and clinical services during pretrial detention or as early as possible upon incarceration and prior to release. Also support collaborative case planning that supports the delivery of age-appropriate, trauma-informed, and evidence-based treatment, recovery, and transitional programming during incarceration. Also, continued case management that supports wraparound services, continuity of care, crisis stabilization, peer support services, and long-term recovery in the community. It also supports crisis response services in the community to support crisis stabilization during reentry, which may be delivered by the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, mobile crisis teams, crisis stabilization and triage centers, peer support specialists, public safety officers, community-based behavioral health providers, or other stakeholders, as well as supporting benefit enrollment and care coordination among government stakeholders, community-based organizations, behavioral health providers, such as community mental health centers and certified community behavioral health clinics, hospitals, crisis centers, and juvenile assessment centers. Next slide. There are 3 program areas or program priorities for applications that include 1 for projects that are designed to meaningfully address equity and remove barriers to accessing services and opportunities for communities that have been historically underserved, marginalized, adversely affected by inequality, and disproportionately impacted by crime, violence, and victimization. And/or applicants that demonstrate that their capabilities and competencies for implementing their proposed projects are enhanced because they, or at least one proposed subrecipient that will receive at least 40% of the requested award funding, are a population-specific organization that serves communities that have been historically underserved, marginalized, adversely affected by inequality and disproportionately impacted by crime, violence, and victimization. A third priority area is applicants that make sure program participants receive care continuously and without breaks in service through a community care provider program, and that adopt policies that focus on programming strategies and educational components for reducing recidivism and probation violations. Next slide, please. Just some examples of types of programs that may be supported through this solicitation include pretrial diversion programs that support screening, assessment, or identification services prior to pretrial release from custody, along with crisis and reentry services. Assessments for youth taken into custody to support diversion from juvenile detention facilities that may include mental health, substance use, and family support services, or jail-based reentry programs that may provide recovery support services, including access to benefits, mental health and substance use services, and coordination with the community crisis and hospital system for people who are familiar faces or high utilizers of the jail and health systems. Other examples might include prison-based reentry programs that provide relapse and overdose prevention services, including medication-assisted treatment and mental health services for co-occurring disorders, or a probation parole program that may provide pre-release screening and assessment, cross-system coordination with crisis and behavioral health systems to ensure that people returning to the community have access to behavioral health supports in the community. So next, I'm going to review some of the application requirements. First is eligibility. Eligible applicants include state governments, city or township governments, county governments, Native American tribal governments, nonprofits having a 501c3 status with the IRS, other than institutions of higher education, or nonprofits that do not have a 501c3 status with the IRS. So the following application elements must be included in the application to meet the basic minimum requirements to advance to peer review and receive consideration for funding. The first is a proposal abstract that's submitted in Just Grants. Then there's a proposal narrative also submitted in Just Grants. Then there is a goals, objectives, and deliverables. That is a web-based form submitted in Just Grants. And then a budget web-based form, which includes the budget details and the budget narrative, which is submitted through Just Grants. There's a financial management and system of internal controls questionnaire, including applicant disclosure of high-risk status, which is submitted in Just Grants. Also for nonprofit applicants, the request is for a signed correctional partner memorandum of agreement. And disclosure for all applicants, disclosure of proposed subrecipients and contracts. There's also a requirement in grants.gov to submit an SF424 and SFLLL. All of the, you see the solicitation for more details on all of the above and how to submit all of the above. And if OJP determines that an application does not include these elements, it will not proceed to peer review and will not receive any further consideration. So it's important to go to the solicitation and follow the instructions on how to submit an application, which includes all of these components. And now I'm going to dig into a few of these more deeply. In terms of the proposal abstract, this includes no more than 400 words, summarizing the proposed project, including its purpose, primary activities, expected outcomes, the service area, intended beneficiaries, and subrecipients. And again, that's completed in Just Grants. So follow the guidance in the solicitation on the requested content, including whether you're seeking priority consideration. As noted in the solicitation, the abstract should be in paragraph form without bullets or tables, written in the third person, and exclude personally identifiable information. It should also, as I said, indicate if the applicant is requesting priority consideration, and if so, what type. And as noted in the solicitation, these abstracts will be made publicly available, hence the guidance on how it should be written. The Yep, sorry, next slide. Where are we? Okay. The proposal narrative should be submitted as an attachment in Just Grants, and that attached document should be double spaced using standard 12-point size font, have no less than 1-inch margins, and should not exceed 20 numbered pages. Again, see the solicitation for guidance on the requested content for each section. I'm going to go over just high level, just to walk through the different sections of that proposal narrative. First being the description of the issue. So in that section we're asking you to describe why the project or proposed activities are necessary or address a need, and to include supporting information such as the data to provide evidence that the need exists, demonstrate the size and scope of the problem, and document the effects of the problem on the target population. And then going into project design and implementation, and that, I think we're back up one slide, sorry. Moving too quick. In terms of the project design and implementation, in that section, we're requesting that you provide a description of the strategy you're proposing to address the problem or needs identified in the description of the issue. We also ask you to list the activities and describe how they relate to the goals, objectives, deliverables, and timeline that you'll be outlining in the web-based form that is completed separately from the narrative attachment. For nonprofit applications, this also includes confirming the signed memorandum of agreement or understanding has been provided that describes the partnership with one or more correctional agencies to support program implementation. It also asks that you include a description if you're seeking consideration under the first priority related to addressing identified inequities and contributing to greater access to services and opportunities, or if you're seeking consideration under the second priority to incorporate a community care program. Next slide. The proposal narrative also asks that you respond to a section on capabilities and competencies, which asks you to describe the capabilities and competencies required to accomplish the goals and objectives of the project, including a description of any organization identified as part of seeking that first priority consideration that you've identified as being specific to target populations. The other section that is part of that narrative is to describe the process for measuring project performance, that the performance measures that are required within the solicitation, and what those performance measures are also included as a link in the solicitation. And as I mentioned earlier, separately in a web-based form, the solicitation has you summarizing your goals, objectives, deliverables, and the timeline for the proposed projects and activities that will be submitted as a web-based form as part of your application. Next slide, please. If awarded, grantees are expected to deliver an action plan consisting of a program description, program services and activities, and the assigned TA provider, which in this case is Council of State Governments Justice Center, will supply that action plan and assist you in completing that if awarded, if you're successful. There's also, as I mentioned, regular reporting of performance measures. And then we also ask at the final, at the conclusion of the 3-year award, a final report that documents the intervention, outcomes, and lessons learned. And the program objectives and deliverables, including that action plan, final performance measures, and final report, should all be included in that timeline that's submitted. Next slide. The applicant, which as I mentioned, can be either a state, local, or tribal government agency, or a community-based nonprofit organization that's partnering with the Criminal Juvenile Justice Agency, may seek funds to, for example, hire personnel. That can be case managers, or behavioral health staff, peer support specialists, pay for medication, which might be psychiatric medications or FDA-approved medications to support substance use treatment or naloxone and other supplies. May also be used to pay for screening and assessment tools or associated training to support the identification of individuals for program participation and clinical services during pretrial detention or as early as possible upon incarceration and prior to release. May also use to pay for discharge planning services based on the results of screening and assessment that support that continuity of care and long-term recovery in the community, as well as pay for benefit coordination, case management, evidence-based programming, peer support, enrollment in healthcare coverage, or relapse, suicide, and homelessness prevention, programming, and/or clinically indicated medications, as I said earlier. Next slide, please. Applications that meet the basic minimum requirement will be evaluated by peer reviewers on how the proposed project or program addresses the different criteria. And going through those criteria, one is description of the issue, which is 15% of that peer review score. Then we have peer reviewers evaluate with respect to project design and implementation, so the strength of the proposal, capabilities and competencies, which is the capacity to successfully accomplish the goals and objectives of the proposed project, plan for collecting data required for the solicitation's performance measures, and then the budget with respect to the completeness, cost effectiveness, and allowability of the requested funding. So I know the solicitation is long and very detailed, but I encourage you to review it closely and note the references and links to get support, some of which I'm going to go through now. So the solicitation incorporates guidance provided in the OJP Grant Application Resource Guide, which provides additional information for applicants to prepare and submit applications to OJP for funding. So there's, this is just a screenshot of that guide and the types of tools that are available through the hyperlinks in that document. And this site, you can see the link below, but this site offers tools to support use of Just Grants, which is one of the systems used to submit an application for funding. And it has various tools and resources to get you comfortable with using Just Grants, which is also used, if successful, to support the administration of your grant. In this slide, we have two information on two sources of support. One is for grants.gov, which is how you will initiate your application by submitting your SF424 and SFLLL. And that is for this solicitation. That information is due by April 25th of this year. And then, so if there's any difficulties that you're experiencing with respect to grants.gov, here's different ways to get technical support. And then similarly for Just Grants, and that information is, the deadline for that information is April 30th, 2024. So you initiate the application through grants.gov, and then you submit your application materials through Just Grants. And these are the two deadlines. So please note those deadlines. Next slide. And this is just a plug for you to subscribe to OJP. There's different ways to stay connected and to subscribe to receive announcements and information and basically stay up to date on all that's happening within the Office of Justice programs. And then on this slide is just links to our social media platforms, again, as a way to stay connected to BJA and receive more information on some of those other funding opportunities available through Second Chance Act or through our other funding vehicles. So while we are going to get to some questions, I appreciate that you may have specific questions that are better addressed through the OJP Response Center. So here's information to submit those specific questions that you might have, again, are specific to your organization or how you might consider using this grant program to meet the needs of your locality. Next slide. And this is just a reminder that this is a two-step process with two different deadlines. The grant stock-up deadline, I'm going to repeat it because it bears repeating, is that is April 25th. And do note that there is a time frame there of 8:59 p.m. Eastern time to submit that application to, or those two documents to just grant stock-up. And then similarly, that same time frame of 8:59 Eastern time to submit your application through Just Grants on April 30th of this year. And here another quick reference guide for important contact information from those different systems and opportunities to get technical assistance if you run into any challenges, and as well as for the OJP Response Center for any questions that you have that we didn't answer today, but as well as that come up as you dig into this solicitation a little further. I'm going to pass it over to Felicia, who's been monitoring the Q&A, and we'll get to questions that we are able to address this afternoon.
Thanks, Meg. Yes, we've gotten many questions, so thank you everyone for submitting those over in the Q&A box. We definitely won't be able to get to all of your questions if we haven't already typed in an answer. So just like Meg stated, you can reach out to the OJP Response Center, and that email is grants@ncjrs.gov with your specific questions. But I'll send over a couple to you, Meg, right now that we got in. One of them is, can someone clarify the physical address requirement for SAM registration required to apply for the grant?
The physical address of so this is to register with sam.gov. I'm assuming that question is related to and a physical address for that. I think I'd have to get back to you with that.
Is that something that they can reach out to the OJP Response Center?
That would be a great, yeah.
Okay.
A great suggestion on that one.
The next one, what is considered a youth for this grant?
There is no specific definition. So it's open to how you want to apply.
Okay. Next question is clarifying whether this grant's target population is people with serious mental illness, substance use disorder, or co-occurring substance use and mental illness.
It can be all and or all of those.
But if they do not have any of those diagnoses, they would not be.
Oh, yes, correct. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yes. It's targeted to individuals with serious mental illness, substance use disorder, mental health disorder, or co-occurring disorder. It's co-occurring substance use and mental health disorder, just to be specific.
Thanks, Meg. The next one is just asking about the max award. So whether 825,000 is the max for each of the 8 or the 10 awards, right? That will be made.
That's the maximum dollar amount to be awarded. But that is the maximum. So if it is.
I think we lost Meg. I'm not seeing her. Just gonna give her.
Well, while she's getting back connected to us, I can finish answering that. So that is the max that any particular award can be. Some awards may be less than $825,000, but that is the max that can be awarded.
Thank you, Alexis.
Mhm.
Just going through the rest of the questions. We're not
And,
able to answer specific questions, so just know if you have a very specific question about eligible expenses or partners, etc., please ask the OJP Response Center. But we're trying to answer some questions that can be just answered in this platform here. So
I left you for a minute and I don't know if I was pushed out for a second, but hopefully you heard my answer, which was that $825,000 is the maximum award amount. But if it makes sense, you can apply for less than that. Wasn't sure where I got cut off.
yes, thank you, Meg. It did get cut off like in the middle.
Okay.
But Alexis definitely specified the same.
Okay.
Someone's asking, can you please explain the 2 deadlines?
The 2 deadlines are, one is for those 2 forms, that 424 and just trying to, the lobbying form, like LLL, is due on April 25th. And that once that gets submitted, that's through grants.gov. So the 2 deadlines are because there's 2 different systems. One is grants.gov, where there's those 2 forms are submitted. And then the rest of the application information is submitted through Just Grants by that second deadline.
Okay, great. Just going through some of the questions are a little too specific for us to answer here. So again, please reach out with those questions to the OJP Response Center.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, it's the SF424 SFLLO. I thought it was the same beginning, but those are the 2 forms that are submitted to grants.gov.
Thank you. One question, can an applicant solely focus on diversion of youth? Now, I know that's a very specific question, Meg, but can you just clarify, as I know in the title it says youth and adult, improving youth and adult. Can you just talk about that piece a little bit?
Yes, thank you. The program you propose can target a youth population and or an adult population. It can be one or the other, or it can be both, depending on what makes sense for your community and what your proposed project is.
Thank you. I think just for the person asking about diversion of youth, definitely reach out to the OJP Response Center on that question. Again, I think we have just a lot of questions about the deadline, but I think you were pretty clear on that. Not sure, Meg, if you wanted to reiterate it, but.
And yes, in terms of the 2 deadlines, is that,
Yeah.
that those 2 forms need to be submitted by 8:59 p.m. to be exact, Eastern Time on April 25th. And then that will prompt you then to submit the rest of the application through Just Grants. And that deadline is 8:59 p.m. as well, Eastern Standard Time on April 30th.
And also if we can just kind of reiterate the max award amount. I know we stated that it's the max for each of the awards, but also the time frame for that award amount, that it's over the 3 years, not.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So the maximum award amount is $825,000, and we're expecting to make 10 awards for that amount. And the start date for that award would be October 1st, 2024, and it would go for 36 months.
Thank you. And someone wants to know, what is the time frame for announcing the awards?
So the applications are due, and as mentioned, they undergo a extensive review process, including a peer review process, and those decisions are made on a rolling basis, but they are made the end of the federal fiscal year is September. And because we are looking for a start date of October 1st, it would be by September.
Thank you. And just to reiterate to everyone as well, we are recording the webinar today. We will post the recording along with the PowerPoint slides to the BJA website under where you can find the solicitations. And we'll also post it to the CSG Justice Center events webpage. So if you go on our website, csgjusticecenter.org, under the events tab, you can find all of our webinar recordings along with the PowerPoints. But please reach out to us if you're not able to find it. We can send it to you once it's ready. Just scanning the Q&A. A lot of these questions are pretty specific to applications, so unfortunately we're not able to answer those. You can reach out to the OJP Response Center, but the CSG Justice Center website is csgjusticecenter.org. And you can navigate under our resources tab to the events webpage that has a chronological listing of all of our webinar recordings, including this one. Within 2 weeks, it'll be posted along with the slides.
And for those, even though we can't get into specifics, there are on BJA's website is an opportunity to look at previously successful applications. So if that's helpful as a resource, please do take advantage of it.
I'm just waiting to see if there's any other. Oh, I think folks are asking if you can repeat yourself, Meg.
Oh, what I just said? Yes. That on BJA's website is you can look at successful applications, and those can provide good, examples for you in terms of different programs that have been awarded through this solicitation as well as others.
Someone's asking if they will be notified if they were not selected.
Yes.
Just gonna give maybe 5 more minutes, Meg, for questions.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've gotten a lot, so we're just trying to make sure we can answer the ones that we can answer live, we can get to them.
Okay.
Someone wants to know if you're able to share how competitive this grant was in terms of what percentage of applicants were awarded funding versus applied.
I don't have that information at my fingertips, but we can send that out.
Thank you. And someone's asking about examples of agencies who are qualified to apply. Again, you can read the solicitation for that detail. I believe it's on page 4. It gives a breakdown of which entities are able to apply for the funding. We're gonna give it about 2 more minutes before we close out the Q&A. Someone is asking if unsuccessful grants will have the opportunity to receive feedback. So grant applications that were not accepted.
Yes, there is feedback provided. To anyone who's unsuccessful, there's feedback provided as a result of the peer review process.
There was a question that I can actually answer about where to find past awards. If you go to bja.ojp.gov, under the Funding and Awards tab, you can click that tab and it will give you an option for funding awards. If you click on that, it'll give you all the awards that have been funded by BJA in the past.
Thank you,
We can
Felicia.
share that in the chat as well. Okay, well, as we're wrapping up, we can scroll through the rest of the slides, which are just some sources on some of the data presented on slide 17. And again, we will be posting our slides and this recording on the websites for BJA and CSG Justice Center. If you're unable to locate them, please reach out to us and we can help you with that. I thank everyone for joining us today. And I want to give a special thanks to Meg for doing the majority of the content presentation and answering all the wonderful questions that came through. Again, we want to we want to encourage you to consider applying for this exciting new funding opportunity from BJA for the 2024 Improving Adult and Youth Crisis Stabilization and Community Reentry, or CSCR program. Thank you, and we hope you have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.